You haven't heard that one in a while, huh?
It's been a long time.
Okay. So it says live. I'm just waiting to get some video from the
That
Vintage
is live.
House one. Okay.
Vintage House. Yes, we are. Back
Okay,
again.
There we go.
You got you, Leonard. All right.
I see everybody now.
There's a delay, Leonard. There's a delay.
Yeah, just relax. Hey, everybody, what's up? Vintage House, we're back. I can actually hear that music pretty well. Sounds good. So that's Jesse Saunders, the man of the month, with his new book that we have been promoting. He's been promoting. But tonight we're going to talk about why we promote, why we document. All right, Leonard, you can come on back to the studio. Woo, that's fast. I said, come on and join us. Good track.
All right.
Nice
sure
way
that
to
the
get
music
started.
was right. Okay.
Music was great. So come on in and join us so we can chit chat. So hey guys, thanks for watching. Lauren is in the house. Mega, aka Kevin McFall. Usually people do AKA like the real name and then AKA, but you go by Mega, AKA Kevin McFall.
And I almost forgot one thing.
It's going to be one of those kind of shows, so everybody just buckle up.
Exactly.
Anyway, we are here this week. We're going to talk a little bit about music history, a lot about music history, because I think that, Lauren, Kevin, you would agree that in the last, 5 or 6 years, there has been such a major uptick in the interest of the origins of house music, not only the origins, but sort of where it's gone. Yep, I'm going to show that in a little bit. I'm going to show it up close and personal, Leonard. Leonard has his own book. Jesse's got a book that is recently out where he documents so many great stories. And of course, we have Micah Salkind's wonderful masterpiece that we've talked a lot about. He was on the show to talk about it. And there's so many great stories that document the history of house music in Chicago. So I wanted to spend some time talking about that. Why is it important? Why is it happening now? So maybe we'll start with that question. Why is that happening now? And folks, if you're watching, feel free to chime in. We'll start with the why. We'll start with the who are they featuring and who is being missed in the story. And then what next? So once we document all of this, where do we go from there? I know that so much of it is about preserving what we have grown to love and understand the importance of its history. But for what? So what? Maybe that's the question. So Lauren, Kevin, I'll start with you. Why are we doing this? And then Leonard, we can't see you way back there. Come closer to the camera.
Well, that's how I had it set up. I was trying to do something.
You good?
I get too. Okay.
Well,
now let me get a little bit more creative.
Yes, let's defer to the archivist historian to begin.
I'd love to start on that. I mean, I really think so. When we think about Black music generally, and I consider house music, Black music certainly is formed with it's informed by lots of different music styles and certainly genres. But to me, Black history is critical. Black history can be overlooked. It can be usurped. There's so many things that happen with Black anything, unfortunately, that it's critical that we take control of the music history and make the world understand and know that this is, created by people of African descent. So to me, creating and being a part of the Modern Dance Music Research and Archiving Foundation was always about preserving history. And we have to be able to do that with artifacts, with memorabilia, with stories, with histories. It's critical that we do that. So in whatever way, shape, or form. This show is one form of, preserving and celebrating that music history. And I think focusing on sort of Chicago as one of those focal points is also really important to do. So to me, everyone's story is so important. I don't think it's just started, really, 5 years ago. I think everyone, like Leonard, they were doing their own sort of part in that preservation. But really, my thought was really we have to bring that to a scholarly level. So it is, celebrated like jazz, celebrated like hip hop.
Blues, so many. So is it taking it to the scholarly level? Is that an important juncture in recognizing the importance of any music genre? Does it have to sort of cross over to where people are studying it in the same way that people are studying house music right now? Kevin, maybe you can answer that. But I know
I think one
Lauren's
of the unique aspects of house music and its adoption by the archivists and historians is because there's such an affinity of a lifestyle as well as the music itself. That raw, four on the floor beat associated with house music is very closely tied to the roots of African percussion, Latin percussion, and because of that, I think it warrants the kind of investigative, exploration and research around its origins. Not to mention, it just moves the soul, right? So there's such an emotional connection to it, and people want to understand, well, how can I recreate that emotional connection? What are the elements inside? Who are the people? What were they feeling? All of those dimensions of house music really are compelling people to want to understand, so that they can either replicate it or immerse themselves deeper into what the genre offers.
right. I think that's really good. I think we got a few comments. Hey, Lorna Davis Robinson, just saying shout out to a few people. George Jackson, nice to hear from you. David Opolzi. Jalen, what's up, son? Tyrone Mix. Oh boy. Tell us what taking to the scholarly level consists of. Good question. And then once we take that question, we're gonna introduce Leonard Roy and talk about his history. But please, let's answer Tyrone's question.
Scholarly to me means that people are studying it in more unique ways. So we have people writing books about it, and books that might look at a perspective that is not just one-sided. So we're looking at all levels of the formation and creation and growth and strength and global nature of this music. So we have to make sure, I'm sorry, I know I've got background noise, but sorry, I apologize that I'm so adamant about the scholarly piece of that. I mean, not that, and I want you to recognize too that jazz, right now, if you look at jazz scholars, they don't look like the people who created jazz, and they're telling people what jazz is. So there's some faultiness to having a scholarly sort of embrace of the music, but we have to be able to study it. We have to make sure that the people who created the music form are celebrated and their artifacts preserved, because again, and we've seen this over and over again with all genres of Black music and Black everything, that someone else will say they created it, and we wouldn't have preserved the artifacts that said that we did.
Right.
So I just think, the scholarly level is great. That's just me and you saying, meeting someone from Germany and convincing them that this was birthed in Chicago. And they're like, no, it was birthed in Germany. So how do we prove that? How do we discuss that? Like, no, my boy Jesse did this, like that's just not going to work. So we need real interpretation of the music, what happened, books that discuss it, shows like this that discuss it, something that's documented that people can see, people can tell their own stories about the music.
What's up, John? I agree with you. So I want to take it to Leonard. You want to say something, Mega? Sorry.
I was just going to add that even before we saw sort of this onslaught of books, what was a more readily accessible or a format that drew a lot of adoption was the documentary, the house documentary, right? There were cameras going into these places and spaces to capture the movement, and then there was narration layered on top of it. And then I think we saw more authorship around the study of the genre. And the points that you both made are very important, particularly Lauren, what you said about ensuring that we can defend its origin. As people go about the process of teaching or reciting information about house music, there's a pedagogy that is that methodology of how music historians will go about telling the story. And so they have to have a place, they have to have a source to go to ensure that they're citing the right resources, authentic resources and such. And certainly, to your point, again, the Vintage House Show is one of those resources that is available now. Leonard's book, Jesse's multiple books, the mini documentaries, these are all tools now to help drive that pedagogy of music history and music instruction. So we're very necessary elements in this process.
Yeah. So Darlene, what's up, DJ Lady D? She says there's a journal of scholarship papers dedicated to dance music online called Dance Cult Journal of Electric Dance Music Culture. So I want to thanks Darlene. I want to point out that there is some journalistic intent that's in the ethers that is about dance music culture. I think that where we get to be purists is like what is Chicago's story, and often Chicago's story, because it's so rich and there are so many folks who were instrumental in making that story. It's difficult to tell in one fell swoop. And so you get a book about Chicago and it features like 3 people, and 20 other people will say, what do those 3 people know about it? Well, they know something you don't know, and you know something that they don't know. So it's difficult to do that. So we can go on and on about this, but I want to introduce Leonard Roy, who certainly has earned a place in the history of house music for much of the work that he did very early on. But one of those things that Leonard did, and Leonard, I want you to talk about this, was he was one of the first people to start documenting, sort of his mini documentaries on YouTube. When YouTube was brand new, Leonard was posting videos about DJs and posting music about house music. And I remember it being a new medium because people were saying, who's this Leonard Roy? And is he a friend of yours? He's talking about you on YouTube. And I was like, oh, what is this? And so I was like, yeah, I don't remember Leonard. And so it struck me as something that was novel at the time. Obviously, it's common now, but it was very novel. And Rick Lenoir, I know Lenoir, you say you're right. There are so many gaps in the story, which is why we do this. But I want to just hear from you, Leonard. What was the motivation to do those first YouTube videos that we saw? How long ago was that? First of all, I think it was.
Yeah, that was about 12 or 13 years ago.
Yeah, so very early on.
My motivation behind doing that was I survived my first deployment to Iraq, and I returned to the States. And once that happened, I started thinking about different things. Like a whole lot of other things became important to me after that first war experience. So I said, okay, I'm going to start doing videos and documenting everything I know about that I knew from when we all started with the house music thing. And that is where that motivation came from.
So did the war experience give you a sort of a thirst for life, or what was it about that experience in Iraq that made you want to connect whatever you experienced there to documenting house music? Fill in that gap for me.
Because it made me realize how important some things are that I discounted as, See, the thing about that, if you're in a doggone situation and, you just naturally think the sun is going to rise tomorrow and everything's going to be rosy and bright, you don't really think about things. that are more important to you than you believe, right? But once you're in one of those situations where it's everything that you are used to and everything that you had is removed, you focus on those memories to get you through the horrors. And when I got back, I said, hey, look, I gotta pay tribute to everybody that I know that did whatever they did when we were young. And that's just where the ball started at. You know, I mean, it started, I think Farley was like the first one I did. Then after I did that, it was Steve Hurley. Then I did yours. Then Alan and Wayne, Jesse, Chippy, Mike Dunn, Tyree Cooper. I just went through the whole list as I could.
Yeah. I think it's the reason why I wanted to connect those dots was because it was my first memory of somebody sort of doing independent journalism, you know, saying, this is what I remember, this is what I experienced this, and this is what I need to tell people about that experience. You know, Chippy did his documentary early on too. I think it might have been a little bit earlier than when you were doing that. But as I said, YouTube
that was before. Yeah, that was before. I was in that documentary. That was before. That was before 9/11. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a pre 9/11 documentary.
So that was
9/11 happened after.
Was likely I think his might have been the first Chicago-based documentary that I recall. I could be wrong. If you're out there and you're listening, you know, correct me. But I don't remember there one that was being specific to Chicago about Chicago house music.
His was the only and the first and only. There are no other documentaries that are Chicago-based. Chip did the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well,
he did the only one. The only one.
Was Chips the only one, Lauren?
Yes.
I'm sure someone will tell us no. I'm sure someone will chime in and let us know if there's one other out there that might be Chicago-based. I'm sure there's some small documentaries, maybe not as big, maybe not feature length, maybe that kind of thing that are out there. Maybe didn't get the kind of love. But, you know, certainly Chips was one of the first and was definitely, you know, important, you know, and critical and sort of in people documenting history from the perspective of one of the major creatives around house music, which is a very different ballgame as well.
And so what's important about that is like you said, Lauren, is that our community was documenting. So that did not come out of London. It didn't come out of, you know, Germany. It came out of Chicago, DJ and a producer who had the foresight to say, I'm going to document it first. And so we have to give credit to Chippy, you know, for having the foresight and the insight to do that.
Yeah, and then came the Pump Up the Volume deal. And some of the information in the Pump Up the Volume documentary was incorrect. It was completely incorrect. And I pointed that incorrect information out, and that's when I started getting ostracized.
So this is the point of contention, I think, in so many documentaries, and that's not limited to house music, is that when you talk about history, you got to remember what that word is comprised of, right? What is it?
His story.
His story.
His story.
But
so
I called it like the actual factuals. See, because I mean there was a portion in it whereas Jamie was talking, Jamie Principal, and he was talking about they were trying to shop Your Love because it became a very big hit at 10:15, right?
Off a cassette. Yeah.
Right.
Reel to reel and cassette. Yeah.
Okay. That's not true. That song was out in 1982. Now remember, Steve Hurley and I had that DJ battle at Sawyer's. Steve had an acetate copy on the 1982. Well,
yes.
Right.
And, you know, so Craig is going to come on when Craig Loftus comes on. He's going to join us at some point. I want his opinion on this too.
The power plant didn't open until 1984. Remember?
Okay.
So how did Jamie get with Frankie and make a song in the booth at the power plant in 1984 when we were playing it on cassette in 1982?
It's a good question. I'm
Exactly.
gonna
So
ask.
after I brought that up, it was like, oh, we can't argue that. And then that's when I became Mr. Controversy,
All right.
Mr.
Well,
House Spell Check. But that's all right though. I only get the facts. I only give facts, and
all right.
that's it.
So let's talk about this movie. What happened to? So yes, Jesse Stein. I was going to bring that up. So TV Unsung, TV One Unsung, the documentary / television show Unsung was a Chicago-based story. Well, that counts. That was Chicago. Now, it wasn't a documentary in the traditional sense of like film festival, go see it, what have you. But it was a documentary about Chicago.
Right.
And I know that I will not say, who had it right or who had it wrong, because I do think that everybody has their version of it, and unfortunately, sometimes versions can be very biased. So if I never saw you when I was, in the heyday as a young person, not, at 18, 19, 20 years old, where I'm going out every single night, and then someone pops up on the scene and says, hey, I was there and I had this influence and people didn't recognize me. I say, okay, I believe you, because it was a big city and there were lots of things happening in 1980s. So it's possible that the person who wrote that story did not know you. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's very possible, and that's very feasible. But 1980, when you, myself, Craig, Alan, Tony, all of us were trying to do our thing, by 81, we were well established. All of us were well established.
Getting started.
And what I see a problem is me, my syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to me, my. I'm like, everyone can't me, my.
Right.
Each individual did a certain particular something that made this whole thing work and drew the crowd in, amongst our peers. Everybody has a part that they played in that script. There is no one person that, they are the know all, be all, the greatest thereof, and this. No, there's no person like that. There isn't.
What if we
Everybody
had social
did
media
something.
back then?
Right. Everybody did something. Everybody remembers. Like when I said with you, I was like, when I met you, Chicago State. I was like, ooh, she's better than me. I'm not gonna get beat by a girl. I gotta go home and practice.
You gotta stop saying that, Leonard.
That's the truth. I'm not I don't have to defend the truth. The truth defends itself.
All right. Hey, so David Allen, thank you for watching, David. He said there were several crews working the street and the scene was fragmented. So David, I'm glad you chimed in, because there is something that I do want to share. But let's talk about the fragmented scene. What do you mean by that? And maybe you can chime in on that, Lauren, or Kevin. You were probably around. What was fragmented about that?
Yeah, there's no question that Chicago is a city of cliques, and the cliques certainly spawned into these fragmented groups of promoters, of dance crews, of DJs, and that is a natural and organic circumstance, certainly natural to Chicago and its scene. I mean, you have a city that is one of the most segregated in the world, right? And divided by the lines of North Side, South Side, West Side, and within each of those neighborhood divisions, right, you had multitudes of people whose parents grew up together and knew each other, people who went to the same high schools, who formed, these amalgamations of people with, shared values. And so ultimately, that became reflected in the party scene, the whole dance and music scene. So there was no avoiding that, in my opinion.
So thank you. And I put this up, David, because apparently, this is a flyer for, I've seen it for years. Someone uncovered it, and maybe it was you, David, since your name is circled on the flyer. But this was a party at Sowers. It is pronounced Sowers, not Sawyers, for all you Sawyers fans.
Sowers, yes, indeed.
I asked the owner. No, I'm just kidding. You can pronounce it however you want. I don't care. But this was Dave Risqué and Gucci Sounds, Inc. Ladies, let's come alive at the premier miniskirt ball and super battle of Chicago's top disco DJs. That's what we called it in 1982. This was in April at Sowers. And I'm telling you, this is where they could put as many names on the flyer as possible. And if just the people on the flyer showed up, you had a party. But of course, we knew it was bigger than that. Honestly, I don't remember this party. I think I was there. My name is on the flyer somewhere. But this was a big deal. David, you had something to do with this. You were spinning. Any of you guys remember this party? I know Celeste said she was there wearing her miniskirt and DJing.
I'm like, what's up with the miniskirt, man? I mean,
you had to wear miniskirts. It was all about the miniskirt.
Man, they lucky I wasn't around there. What were the men? They would have to be naked if I was wearing a miniskirt.
That's interesting because we talk about apparel as part of the lifestyle that was house music. The various phases when people were punking out and the preppy scene, and so to see by 1982 we kind of moved past that into miniskirt parties is an interesting phenomenon.
It's so sexist. I'm just going to put it out there. It's one of these things where I didn't pay much attention to it when I was around a clique of guys and they were like, you got to show up and have a mini skirt on and wear heels and DJ and have a lot of makeup on and get your hair done. I had to do all that before a party, so when I showed up, I was all there. I was like, did the guys do anything like that? Hell no. They didn't. All right, but that's a different show. So,
hey, Lori.
Yes. What's up?
And 1 week earlier, if my memory does not serve me wrong,
go ahead.
1 week earlier, Sowers.
What's that? Move it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. What was that?
That was the DJ battle with myself and Steve Hurley.
That's who won.
I won.
Okay, congratulations.
And you were there.
I probably look. I went out every night.
Oh so no, I know you were there. It's not no, but you probably know. I know you were there.
Okay.
We need evidence of that win. Get Steve Hurley on the line right now and have him confirm that. Did you get a trophy? What y'all get?
That's right, David.
Okay. Why do I know? You want to know why I know she was there?
Why?
Because you voted for me to win.
Oh,
you were one of the judges.
Leonard is always starting trouble. I said, I promised people.
You were one of the judges, Lori.
Vince.
Oh boy.
Vince.
Okay.
Ask Robert Allen.
Robert Allen. Okay, it's pronounced.
Robert Allen.
How is that? Sowers? Yeah, Sowers. Right.
Sowers.
Thank you, Vince.
Ask Rob Allen.
This was my buddy.
There were 4 DJs. There were 4 judges. We had to all draw straws to see who went in what order. And after we did what we did, the 4 of you all,
right,
whatever y'all did, and I ended up with 2 votes instead of just 1 vote.
Wow, we were talking about the major battles, but you mentioned something else, and I do want to do another screen share. Flyers were very important, but there's something that I noticed at looking at all of these flyers from the past. One of the things that many of them had in common was very weird thing. You know what that was? They
were hand-drawn art.
But they had white people on the covers.
Well, that was because of that preppy Archie's thing.
It's the weirdest thing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was the preppies Archie's thing. Remember, the Archies wore the Argyle socks, Jughead, and the rest of them.
Why were we
and
putting
the straight leg jeans?
Why were we putting white people on flyers when these parties were 99%?
When I look at Vertigo, Look
Go
at the
ahead.
Verticals. What did the Verticals have?
No,
I mean,
we didn't. We
her
did not.
drawing things.
No, we
Keith
didn't.
Haring was probably doing different things with sort of Frankie's stuff. So I didn't see
No.
there were that many white people on our
Oh,
flyer.
I'm going to show you a few
Yeah,
right now.
I'm looking through the book right now, and well, can't really see this really good, but
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you one. Okay.
this is from the bitter end, and this looks like a skinny black guy with a jerry curl.
And who's he with?
Looks like a skinny white chick.
Okay. Thank you. My point's proven there. I'm going to show you some
So
more. Okay.
that does not look like a black woman.
This
But
one
he
is.
looks
This
like
one
he's
is.
got a jerry curl. He's got that Ray Parker Jr. radio thing going on.
We have to get the illustrators. We need to get those illustrators and those people who created those flyers who we never really talked to. We need them on the flow.
Yes, and
Matter of
unfortunately,
fact, I think
Antonio
I can
Wade
find.
is one of those illustrators who look at this.
Yeah.
This.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Chicago Hot presents the Izod and Burger Bash Fest that was at the Dalton Lodge in Calumet, off the Calumet Expressway in Dalton. So that was, I DJ'd a lot of parties with Andre Hatchett, but Lori Andre and Pierre Donegan. Attire Izod. Now, Izods, yes, hamburgers, what have you. But the point that I'm making is, why would groups of Black kids use white models, whether they were, why would you want that on your flyer? Discuss.
Well, I can discuss. It's very simple, Lori. It's very simple. It
Okay.
was the interracial racism within Black people, the light-skinned Black, dark-skinned Black thing, the Water Tower Place shoppers versus 63rd and Halsted by the L Station shoppers. All of this stuff, this division and this racism stuff, it played into part. Remember Kevin Abdullah?
Yeah.
Everybody wanted that hair like Kevin. Everybody wanted to be light-skinned like Kevin. All the girls was, that's like Jesse.
Kevin's actually going to be on the show next with Hans Cherry.
Yeah, you have Jesse. You have Jesse as a DJ. All the girls show up. Oh, he's so cute. Remember Wayne? Well, remember when Wayne had hair? He had that curly hair too. Alan had that hair. So Roy. Remember Roy that was dancing with Steve Hurley?
Okay, I think we got it. Yeah,
we had that hair.
We know Roy. He's been on the show, but you're making a really good point. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, Roy, this is one dimension of what it was, but there was also, as you spoke about a moment ago, the preppy movement, right? There was actually a preppy handbook that many of our peers had, and were taking some of the illustrations from the handbook to craft the flyers, or at least emulating what was in that
You're
handbook.
on top of it.
Now, certainly,
exactly.
We saw a movement not long after in which Afrocentricity became, the adopted movement. But as history has it, right, we go through these periods, right? I wouldn't call it one of any kind of self-disdain, but certainly there was probably some belief, right, that those images were aspirational for us, and the opportunity to become preppy, right, was centered around those kinds of concepts, those social constructs, and the imagery. We still have that problem today, in that we're being a lot of what we see in advertising. They've begun to integrate, right? But you still now have these odd families that are, being portrayed in cereal commercials, and but a lot. It's not. It's this evolution, right? Let me
jump in there from the advertisement point. Not to cut you off. This but this is
No, no,
important.
no.
If you look at the commercials that they have on, right? Have you noticed all of the commercials are, not all of them, but a large amount of them are mixed couples?
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't see commercials, the light-skinned brother with the white woman. But you'll see the dark-skinned brother with the white woman and the kids. Then you'll see the dark-skinned woman with the white husband, like the one where he goes and picks the child up and brings her to eat ice cream and such.
Right.
Yeah, it's still going on, but it's on a different level now. See?
So Andra is saying that no one did your art, but Andra, I know for a fact that people hired artists. I agree that some of these parties you just you had somebody at the print shop just make it for you and they used whatever stock stuff they had. But we had artists that were very well known in the community, some of whom passed away, others, who are still around, who intentionally made these images, for these parties. Here's a party for Kenwood High School, right? Another battle of the DJs at the mansion. I remember this one. The mansion was this really, really, really cool spot that was on 47th and King Drive. This party was packed. Do you guys remember this one? Anybody?
There was a
I'm looking on this.
King.
I'm looking on this phone because I'm not seeing it on the one we're broadcasting from.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was a packed party, but and it was a great party. So I don't want to make it all about the artwork, but these flyers were really,
oh my goodness!
Yeah,
I remember that party.
What year was this approximately?
It was probably around 82, 83, somewhere around there. It might have been 81, 81. I don't know.
It wasn't that late because
Curtis
Blow was at that party.
It was. I remember it being very jam packed, and I think all DJs had about like 30 minutes to spend. It was very, we were there to hang out more than we were anything else.
Curtis Blow was at that party.
Wow.
And Christmas Rapping was played. He didn't perform. He just walked around, and people were like, that's Curtis Blow. That's Curtis Blow. That's Curtis Blow. Because I only went to a couple of the parties at the mansion, right? Myself and my friend Clee. And, at that time when this happened, we were still doing the dance that work your body.
Yes.
We were still working. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one.
So anyway, the point I was making is these parties were interesting. And you were right. I'm going to share one more. Some of these artists were amazing. They did amazing work. When I go through my file of flyers and stuff that I find on Facebook, David was saying that this was about the era of designer labels. Calvin Klein was big. Gloria Vanderbilt was big. Young Black kids were chasing those labels to fit in. And so the image of young Black kids wearing those labels, didn't quite do it. So we put white people wearing those labels on there. David also says it was a reflection of rich LA teens who set trends in the 80s as Black kids from the mid. This was a huge thing for us, and we were trying to follow that.
Oh yeah, I can show you an old picture right now. I wish Lolita was in the show so she could see herself back in 1982. She'd be like, "Oh my God, really, Leonard?" I'd be like, "Yes." Look at this hairstyle and look at how she's dressed.
Who's that?
That's Lolita Fisher. She used to go to Kenwood.
Okay. So Vince said Tana Gardner was at that party too. Curtis Blow. So
Tanya Gardner actually performed at a mansion party. I'm not sure if that was the same night, but
probably not. I don't remember her performing, but man, a lot going on.
Yeah, she did a lip sync over Heartbeat.
So I want. So 1982 is an interesting year. I wanted to just talk about like the context in which some of these things were occurring. That year was the year of Thriller came out. Michael Jackson. We weren't playing it. Oh yeah, Rex Perry. So Wayne Williams, really? Rex Perry, yes, Craig Rex Perry. Um, bless him. He was one of those artists. So Wayne, maybe you can weigh in on why is it that we were using white artists, and then I will leave. I mean, white models in our art history, and then I'll leave it alone. Okay.
I want to put that Kenwood back up because I want to go down the list and see where some of these people are, if they're still alive, if they're people we should be talking to.
Okay, I'll put it back up there. So 82. Guess how much rent was in 1982 for an average apartment? I like that. I like that. Music Box member. $320.
This is a real membership card from the Music Box on 16th and Indiana.
That was the first Music Box.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, how much was rent, Lori?
$320 a month.
For what?
How do you know that? You were renting spaces in 1982?
I don't know. I remember paying a lot less than that. You get you a new house for $70,000. That was pretty good.
But then you had minimum wage was $3.25 an hour.
And you had a recession kicking in that year under the great President Reagan.
And we as DJs were getting over like fat rats.
To quote on the Ray song.
We were getting over. I mean, I was making $600 a weekend at the Ring Zone.
You had to have a pretty steady job to do that.
Yeah,
Kirk
I mean, I was making
about that too. He was making.
I was making more money than some of the girls' fathers that I was dating.
Yeah. How much was a gallon of milk? I think I actually have that somewhere. It was very cheap.
I don't remember, but I know.
Gallon of gas was 90 cents. How about that?
See, because with the Ring Zone, it was like this. JR worked a deal with the owner, right, to go half on the door. And it was, $5 to get in. And on average, we would do 1,000 teenagers on a bad night. So you're looking at a $10,000 weekend. JR had $5,000 in his pocket afterwards. He paid the DJs what he paid the DJs. You had Dwayne Jackson. He drew all the flyers by hand. He took them to Pronto Printing and got them printed off on like the cheapest paper that you could get. He got the posters made in Earl Park, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they made the posters. When we started out, we were so humble. I mean, we rode around on our bicycles, right? We had the 10 speeds with the luggage racks on the back. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
We would get a bunch of the posters. Now, JR would get the whole load of posters, like 300 posters. We had a power drill and drill all the way through them, and you had 2 holes. Everybody had their zone, and we would leave on our bikes and have them clipped to the back. It was always coat hanger on the doggone poles already, right? So we just loop them up, wire them up, and hang up all our posters, And I mean, people, they talk about, well, was money being made? The Ring Zone made some serious money. The Ring Zone bought all of us our first cars. It bought Lil Jon, DJ Lil Jon. DJ at the Ring Zone bought him his first vehicle.
All right.
And everybody else. And it was so much money made at the Ring Zone that it purchased the Ring Fitness Factory that Nate Simpson sold about 6 months ago to someone else. And that place is still there. That's the legacy of it all. You see, the rink opened up in 1975, and it was like the first black-owned skating rink. And that was in 75. Then once JR got with Nate in 1982, he was about to close the business, but that's when the house music thing kicked in. That's post-bitter end partying. And the way the thing went was, I don't know if I know you all remember. I'm not even going to even say it. Marvin Terry.
Yes.
Remember
Craig,
Marvin Terry?
We're waiting for you, Craig. Call in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Craig, come on. Like, come on, Craig. But
While we wait for
but
Craig,
Marvin Terry,
Because he's
what
going to
launched
join.
this is what launched the Ring Zone. Marvin
Yeah.
Terry gave a back to school party featuring the Hot Mix 5, right? And it was a DJ battle. The Ring Zone DJs versus the Hot Mix 5, right? And Farley has talked about this in his interviews. He was like, hey, look, I was a king. I'm on WBMX and all that. Leonard came up behind me, was like, yeah, that's all right. Watch this. And I went into some rare zone of some sort. And it was just like, oh! And that's what built the Ring Zone. And after that, I was a headline DJ forever, you know? And, you know, the thing with me with DJing, it wasn't I was so into the music and I was into this and I was into that. It was like, I'm not even going to be politically correct with this. It was anger, okay? It was strictly anger. I went to Robeson High School. I lived in Inglewood. I was considered ghetto. Everybody had their noses up at me because we do this and we do that and we play here and we play there. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to have to be twice as good as they are to get my respect. And I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and became the best that I could ever possibly be. And when the opportunity presented itself for me to show my greatness, it was a doggone landslide wipeout. And, you know, me, for anything that I have in this DJ thing, I fought for every inch of what I have. Nobody gave me nothing.
You know,
Nobody
conversation,
gave me any breaks.
I hear what you're saying. And David agrees that you were well respected. So, you know, thanks, David, for weighing in.
I mean, I had to, you know, instead of being, you know, kumbaya, we're all, you know.
Right.
I had to go there.
You had to fight for it.
I mean, it's cool.
You had to fight for it.
Yeah, I had to fight for it.
Can I jump in for a second, and then I would love to hear
Go ahead, Laura.
I think that you're bringing up a point that we talked about last week. You know, Reggie was on, and we had a lot of people watching the show last week when Reggie was on, because he talked about something very similar, which was that there was this class distinction. There was friction in the community then that not everybody felt. Some people felt it and some people didn't, because there was
the haves and the have-nots.
Right. And it is not something that we talk a lot about, but it is something that is important if we're trying to understand the history of house music in Chicago. Why is that? I'm gonna ask Lauren and Kevin this question, and then I want you to respond. Why is that discussion so difficult for us, Lauren? We'll start with you.
You know, I think there's issues on so many levels. I mean, I think the gay population might have felt different than the straight population. Maybe the gay population felt that there were issues, or maybe saw that there were issues around them. Plus the class system, as if we're going to call it class, you know, sort of systems where, you know, Reggie from the Ickies versus someone from Inglewood versus someone from someplace else. Some things I think sometimes are internal. You know, sometimes you are feeling like there's this big divide between these people, or people are treating you differently, or that kind of thing. You know, sort of from some points of view, but in other points of view, you feel like there's some real sort of issues with people being cliquish and not being welcoming and that kind of thing. And so you put your own sort of pressure on yourself. All these things need to be talked about. I mean, there are people like me who didn't see that there were a lot of issues around sort of people's backgrounds and, you know, income status and gender preference. I didn't see that. I just saw a love of music. We're just dancing. We're having a good time at Mendel, at Quigley, at the clubs that we snuck into, and could care less about that. But I think so there are other populations that do feel there were issues.
But Lauren, you're speaking from a place of privilege. So you're saying you didn't see
That's exactly
you didn't see that.
Didn't see it.
But you didn't see that because you didn't need to see it. So if somebody like Leonard or Reggie is saying they felt it, I mean, this this sounds like a little bit of like, the racial discussions that we're having. Like people at work are like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, right.
Well, it seems fine to me. And I felt the same way. I'm not pointing it out to you. I felt the same way. I didn't know that this even existed because I didn't see it.
Right.
So
that's
well, Lori, you wouldn't have.
It.
Well, Lori, you wouldn't have seen it because I mean, number one, very sexy woman. Number two, light skin. You wouldn't have seen light skin, light eyes, all that. You wouldn't have seen it no way.
So
you were like the desire.
She saw none of the sexy
no. Your appearance was the desire of every man.
Greg is ready to come in.
Lauren's gonna have a heart attack.
But I want to say this because it's thematically something I say on nearly every other show. House is a microcosm of society, and we all bring our authentic selves into this genre. We're not coming in and then becoming something else. We're bringing who we are, our socioeconomic class, our sexuality, religion, all of that is brought into this. And the beauty of it is what emerges right through the music.
Okay.
Through
and see what
it is beautiful. It is beautiful, but wait a second. 1 second, Leonard. It's beautiful, but Kevin, what I'm trying to get at is, and what I've been trying to get at for the last few weeks, is that there is this dissension, and it didn't just come out of nowhere. And like as we start to unpack the history of house music in Chicago, it's bringing stuff up for people. And this isn't the first time that I've heard people talk about class and cliques, and I didn't fit in, and I had to do this, and I had to do that. And we're 30 years, 40 years. I mean, I think it's very therapeutic, and I think it's interesting. But I also think that if we want to tell the real story, we got to tell the real story, the whole story. Hey, Craig.
The whole side.
Well, can I make
a side and the pretty side?
All right, Craig. Okay. Welcome, Craig Loftus. We'll hear from you.
Well, it is very, very true that it's always been cliquish like that from day one. And if you remember, Lori, back in the day when we first started going to 206, there was what was like considered the house royalty. Those were the people who danced close in front of the booth, like Poo Lala, Cat, and Bobby Sox. That whole clique, would dance in front of the DJ booth by Frankie, and you dare not be in their space when they get there. It was also the same mentality, like when you remember back in the day when you go into the warehouse, the original warehouse, your whole concern was what you were wearing that next day, that next Saturday. You see what I'm saying? Because you had to walk through the court, as you call it, the way 206 was made. Remember, you worked on that outfit all week to be approved by the court members that were sitting in that hallway before you got downstairs. So it has always been, that so-called house royalty cliquish type thing. Each group had their own, but it was a hierarchy there. And it also came to the point where when you started throwing parties or being involved in other events, as we started maturing, there were certain people that even in our age group, if those people were in that room, you knew that was a party. Oh, this is going to be real party. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day when 6'3" was, very well known. David Risquet or 6'9", 6'9". Yeah, you know what I'm saying? 6'9", 6'3", whichever one of them. I'm old now. But you understand what I'm saying? There were certain people that you would see and you knew, and that was because of their ranking in our community and house music.
What does that mean? What do you mean by ranking? Tell me what that means.
It's like they were like, I would say more, they were like the house of house. They were, they were always fashionably correct. They were just somewhat like the Helen Baileys and the Arthur Baileys. They were just always the elite of the elite, and when you saw them in a party, you kind of you knew, oh yeah, this is going to be one of them parties. Cause you walked in the door and you would look who's in this room. Just the same way as we do DJs now. Oh, who's playing? Oh, we didn't really care who was DJing because there was so many DJs back then. We were all coming up. But what you did rank the party by was who was in attendance. When you walked in that door and you saw one of those house royalties, you knew it was going to be one of those parties.
Okay. Arthur Bailey, Lionel Brazil, Tony Smith.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. So Wayne, Craig, Leonard, what did these people have in common? What was going on with these people that made them the superstars? Or the people that you wanted to be around? What was that ruling class comprised of? See, we're gonna get to this question.
You want Craig to go, or you want me to go?
I want Craig. Listen, time out. I want Craig to answer first, and then I want you to hear. And then Lauren, I know me and you, we didn't see any of this because we was just off in La La Land somewhere.
Are you kidding?
But we're gonna learn tonight. We're learning tonight. Craig, your turn.
Wow. They were just the originators. It was like they were the original people that, when we were growing up and just becoming and just identifying with this culture in my world, they were just some of the original people that their fashion was fashion played a lot with it. You know what I'm saying? They were always on 10, their look, their dance, everything. Everybody knew who they were. Everybody wanted them at their parties. So I would say it was just because they were from the beginning. They were there from the beginning of all of this.
So, but it had something to do with the way they presented themselves.
Exactly.
Okay, now Leonard, what do you have to say about that?
Okay, well, what I have to say about that, what pushed me into that entity, but what caused people to be like, well, where do you stay? And I'm like, 69th and Emerald, Inglewood, right? The thing about that was my mother owned a dry cleaners in Wicker Park. I was one of the haves, even though I lived in the ghetto. All of what I was wearing clothes that some looked at in Bigsby's and Crothers at Water Tower Place and thought about getting. I was wearing it. The $600 reefer sweaters.
Right.
I don't know if you all remember them, but it's a sweater, a hemp sweater that was a $600 sweater.
We didn't have that.
My mother bought me all that crazy stuff while people were wearing Bonjour jeans with yellow stitching. I had Bonjour jeans with sky blue stitching. This is the new change up of the whatever. So they were looking at me like, oh, he must live in Hyde Park, or, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that Giorgio Armani he's wearing. Oh,
Again, Leonard's going back to fashion. You see, fashion
played
a big part in house music. Even down to a lot of the names of the organizations, the Gucci's. Everybody was, fashion was really big for us back then. So, you remember that, Lori.
Well, of course I do. And it was a double standard for women, but we won't get into that. Different show.
Well, I don't know about the women part, but I know
women DJs. It definitely was a double standard. And Leonard, you said
that now that's true.
It was a double standard.
Craig would tell you.
I could show up however they wanted to, and Craig would not let me walk out the house looking any old way. There was a curation party before we went anywhere.
Exactly.
Jose was physically making my clothes, physically sewing what my outfit was going to be for. Like,
my
word! You think I'm kidding?
It was vertigo.
Oh my word!
You guys epitomize what you're talking about and describing, right? Fashion component of this movement.
But I don't want to sound I don't want to sound like humble bragging, because that's not what I'm trying to do. It sounds that way. What I'm saying is that there were factions, and people were aware of them, or people weren't aware of them. Some people were more aware, and there were people who were harmed by those factions, right? Now, someone
Yeah.
made a comment. I was looking for the comment. If this was you, just restate it. But someone was saying people who are struggling today were the same people who were struggling back then. And my question was, was that something? Were we mimicking sort of the oppression that we were experiencing in the street, in the community, on the dance floor? Were we kind of mimicking the same kind of oppression that Black people experienced through class structure, through skin tone, through fashion, through being, part of the cool kids? Did we bring that energy into something that we want to fantasize that this house music was just all love and all that, when for a lot of people it wasn't that? Maybe it wasn't a pleasant memory. I don't know. Am I making this up? I just wonder.
No, you're not, Lori. You're not making it up. It's all
I
true.
just got a comment about that,
Okay.
Lori. What I don't understand is when you say, was it not love for everyone? Then my thing would be, well, then why would they be a part of it? Why wouldn't they leave it? Why, if it was something that did not show them love, and if it wasn't an experience that they loved, why would they leave? Why would they still be a part of it? See, I believe that back in the day, it was all about the love and even aspirations. It gave you something to look forward to. Because give you an example. Now, again, back to the fashion. If we could not afford Versace and all of that stuff, or designers and stuff, what did we do? We made it. We made it ourselves. And you know what I'm saying? And we got the approval from our peers. Oh, that's hot. Where did you get that from? Now, if we want to lie and say it's Versace, we would do it. But, the bottom line
Hold your phone still. Hold your phone still.
Oh, okay.
You
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm in a rocking chair. I'm an old man. I'm in a rocking chair. Right.
What's up,
No,
Emmanuel?
but you understand what I'm saying, Lori? You made the comment, well, if it wasn't good for everyone, because I've never known. Now, I think what you may be saying, if I get it correctly, maybe there were some people in the house scene that felt that they weren't a part of the big picture, or were on the outside looking in. But see, that goes along with personality, because if you had a personality that's to be reckoned with, you were going to be known in house music. I don't care who you are. They're going to know who you are.
I hear you, Lee. Okay.
So what's interesting about that point is one of self-esteem. As a young adult in the age range of, let's say, 16 to 20, right? There were challenges where people were still developing self-esteem around who they were and their identity. And so,
exactly.
Of course, there was angst in that process, and it was exacerbated by the house scene, right? Because you had fashion, you've got popularity, you've got all these attributes and dimensions swirling around someone struggling with, and I'm no psychologist or psychiatrist, but I was a teen, right? So I can relate to what some of the people might have felt, but through time, through experiences, hopefully you move through it. But I think what we're talking about is that there are people who still haven't.
Yeah. Well, I have a 30-second point that I could doggone put out, and that puts the staple in the whole thing about right now.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, back at that time, you had the doggone resurgence of the gang culture in Chicago. Gang bangers dressed a certain way. They listened to certain types of music. Now, those of us on the South Side, the South Side house heads, we did not wear those fashions. We did not listen to that music. We didn't play Was Dog a Donut. We didn't play JB Monorail at our parties.
You had to go skating
we
to hear
wasn't
that.
wearing baggy jeans and 40 shoes and bucks and all of that. Okay, your gang banger attire. So you had a classism issue back then, because we would go, you had all those nice stores at Evergreen Plaza, but what was it called? It was called Ever Black Plaza, because that's all you ever seen were black.
All right, Kevin, what we're talking about tonight is we're talking about the history of clubs, Fliers, and some of the dissension, that has risen out of out of that, it's boiled down to like, was there a class issue and did it hurt people? So I put my banner up. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Leonard. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're all right, Lori. But yeah, it was a class issue. And, you had people that were hurt in the process of, because they were made to feel lesser than if, well, they didn't have an Izod shirt. Now, think about this. We're talking about 1980 to 1985, right? Minimum wage was what, $3.25 an hour? If you're going to buy an Izod shirt, that was a $40 shirt back then.
Yeah, we used to share them. We would share our Izod shirts.
Now,
guys,
we on the South Side, we started wearing 2 shirts at a time.
Well, go ahead,
different
Craig.
colors.
Yeah, I just have a problem with this, that you guys are saying that, some people felt hurt or not. I can't grasp that. I can't
So
get my head
you're saying, okay, Craig, the point you were making was this. You're saying, why would somebody stay in a scene that did not want them?
Exactly.
Why would you be there in the first place if you felt like you were disrespected or, not tolerated or whatever? Why would people do that? And Kevin, you had a response. What was your response?
Yeah, I used the term earlier about aspirational. Even though you might have resented, someone who had or who was rocking the Izod and polo, the Oxford cloth over the polo shirt with the collar popped, right? You might have aspired to that. And so you were going to be present. You were going to see what those trends were, and you were going to go back and figure it out. Just like Leonard, you spoke very well about what drive is, right? And you said, you came from this different neighborhood than the neighborhood where some things were popping off, and you grinded until you came out with fire, right? You were blazing the decks because you were driven, because you wanted to ensure that you represented yourself well, and maybe even set new standards.
Right. So Leonard, go ahead, Lauren.
At the same time, when we talk about sort of these class divisions, let's talk about even if you don't even think about it, you're from Inglewood, but you're still pointing out the gangbangers had their own thing, and maybe that was less than. So even if you feel that you would have been discriminated against in some way, you're still kind of discriminated against other people too. It's that cliquey thing. It may not be less than, but I think house music did bring those people together. They all wanted to be in the same place, listening to the same music, whether you felt one way about them or another, and it would bring people together.
All right. So Lori Crossley is like, when you walked into 206, all that BS was irrelevant. Was that true? If you walked into 206, was that all irrelevant?
Yeah. 206 was a whole different entity.
Well, let's take
Leonard, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let's take it to the Music Box and the Power Plant, because that's when you got, 206 had more of a gay clientele with the experimental straight trying, enjoying it. The Music Box and the Power Plant kind of like really introduced the club scene to the straight kids all over the city. So it started out with a gay undertone, but eventually it was taken over by the straight kids and the house heads, you might want to call them. But it was everybody. There was tons of thugs that used to go to the Music Box. Tons of them used to go to the Music Box. Some of them used to come to the Power Plant. Even when we opened the Power Plant, we had issues with some of the guys in Cabrini Green until we had a face-to-face with them. And then they started coming to the club. You see what I'm saying? So it did transcend. I think, Lauren, you was the one that said it. It did transcend where everybody just wanted to come and hear the music and enjoy the party, because these thug guys were used to going to the Copper Box and all this other stuff and things like that. But they would come and they would go to the Music Box and the Power Plant. And even back in the day, some of them would come to the Warehouse. But that was a whole nother story because they was coming for another reason. But we ain't gonna go there. But that's another story.
Right. So it sounds
See,
like
you
we
stifling
did
the
evolve.
truth.
It's just like
Stifling the truth.
we did evolve. That there was that dissension. Not I keep using that word. I don't want to say that. There was tension. There was class culture and class tension that some people were aware of. You know, I can't help but say that that was a bit of a microcosm of the larger societal tensions, because it sounds that way. And some of us were aware of it. Lauren Lowry grew up in the same neighborhood I did. Maybe that's why we weren't aware of it. You know, so I don't know, Lauren. I'm putting you on the
I mean,
spot there.
I would like to speak to someone who was aware of it. I mean, I'm still,
Well,
fellas,
Leonard is
ladies.
saying he was aware of it.
I don't. I mean,
Very aware of it. I mean, I'll take it up another
Leonard,
notch.
Take me back to the 80s. Hey, Leonard, do me a favor. Take me back to the 80s when all of this was starting. Where and when was there somebody that just felt like, I mean, everything was happening back then. So when was somebody feeling like they weren't a part or they were hurt or any of that? Because everybody had their own little scene. Everybody was doing something. So
yes.
I'm
And
not.
so what did that look like? What did that look like, Leonard?
Okay, perfect example. I go to Vertigo parties. I would go to Vertigo parties, Craig. And young ladies I would meet at Vertigo parties. We would have conversations, and once I gave the address to where I live, oh no, you live in the ghetto. Oh no. And I mean that transcended into.
Let me just say this.
Now, hold on, Craig. Craig, hold on.
Go ahead.
Let me get it out there. That transcended even into the DJ aspect of it all. Do you know how I would not be considered to even play with certain DJ groups strictly because I went to Robeson High School and nobody wanted Robeson High School ghetto thug students at their parties? Because I mean, I know how they did. They toe up. That's just what they did. They act the fool.
Okay.
And I understood that, you know. So me understanding that aspect of it all, like, okay, they're going to be stupid if they get there. But I was judged by the school that I went to opposed to the talent that I was bringing. See, you had X amount of Robeson students that were on that same house music vibe, right? And really, it wasn't even house music back then. It was Punk Out, B-52s, Visage, Frequency 7,
Euro
blah,
disco.
blah, 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 blah. Because remember, we all go back. We all go back to First Impressions on 13th in Michigan. Okay? Pre-Playground. We all go back to the first impression.
So there's a few comments I want to address. So I think that what I'm seeing overwhelmingly is people are saying, you know, if people like you, Leonard, had issues back then, it was your issue, was not about the party. And I can't speak for you. I can't speak for anyone who felt like they didn't want to belong. But someone else just commented that people want to fit in. You know, if I'm living down the street from the Music Box and I see all these kids going to the Music Box, and I live in the Ickies, why can't I go to the Music Box? And if I'm there and I feel uncomfortable about it because I do see a class distinction, I'm going to have a mixed feeling about it. I'm still going to want to go there, but I am going to feel like, oh, okay, these are people who are not like me. So we can't deny these are people's experience, you know.
That is very true, Lori. That is very true. And the difference with me The one major difference with me and everyone else in where I lived was I was the child that had. See, like I said, my mother owned a dry cleaner in Wicker Park. I would be in the Wicker Park area where Coke Cleaners was. I mean, hell, you get the NBC news people and weather folk. I mean, that's the reason that I know. Remember Jennifer Beals from Flashdance?
Yes, of course.
I knew Jennifer Beals was black. Yeah, I knew Jennifer Beals.
All black
was
people
black.
know Jennifer Beals is black. She looked black to us.
Well, not really.
It's the white people that don't know she's black. That's a whole other show.
Well, you know
that's
what?
A whole,
there's
people that don't know that Jennifer Beals.
Not to cut you off, Leonard, but you know, one of the things I did understand that you were saying, which made some sense, was the school. Now, schools, that might have been a separate, you know, people did look at, okay, what school did you go to whether or not how house you were, you know, because you had all the little Kenwood, Lindblom, all of those schools. They were like, you know, they were the ultimates. You know,
how house you were.
I went to, you know, by the school that you went to. Yeah, you know. But other than that, I just can't see it, guys. I would have to get somebody on here besides Leonard. I'm sorry, Leonard, but somebody who actually felt like they were alienated from the scene because of house music and the cliques that were going on. And I'm not talking about the new stuff. I'm talking about back in the day.
Right.
Because we just find it really hard back in the day. I mean, you know, even with the ones, like I was talking about the house royalty that we would see at 206 and places like that. We were not we were not part of their clique. And I don't even 9 times out of 10, we probably would never have been able to be. We weren't friends with them. And I don't think they looked down on us, but they had their own little group of hot people. And what we ended up doing is we just gravitated to people that was like us, and we became friends. So instead of trying to fit in with some other group, we created our own little group, and we all became friends. And we would still talk about, ooh, look, you see what Pupulala got on today? You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at it. I just don't see this thing going on that you guys are talking about.
Craig, I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%. Reason being, people look at things personally from a different perspective. I agree with you 100%. You're right. Water reaches its own level. Everybody got together with their own people.
I got 2 comments here. One from Harley the House, who saw nothing but love, followed by our brother. Hold on. Stop it. Followed by, I'm getting the wrong comment there. Followed by our brother Eric Eastmove Miller. Eastmove. There was definitely classism. Okay, so suffice it to say, I think that, you know, some people saw it and some people didn't. Some people experienced it and other people didn't. It hurt some people and some people didn't know it existed. Some people felt nothing but love and some people got turned away at the door. All of those experiences happen, and we can't deny that if it didn't happen to us, that it didn't happen to somebody else. And that is part of the house music story, whether we want to admit it or not.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't say that I don't believe that it was not classism. Oh, it was definitely classism in house music. That's a definite. I believe that. But when it gets to the point where you guys say that it affected some people in a negative way, that's where I have a problem.
How else would classism affect people in a positive? I mean, it works for the people who get to be the classist. But if you're the class, if you're the, of course it's going to negatively affect.
But you know what? I look at it like this. The people that are considered that I consider house royalty, I always use that. I love that little term. House royalty, they weren't always house royalty. They made their way to
Hello.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Leonard.
Well, look, I tell you, look, my defining moment. What was your
defining moment? Yes.
was when I opened for the Chosen Few DJs picnic in 2006. That was my defining moment right there.
Okay.
So for those that want to say, oh, Leonard and this and blah, they see all these doggone things about me. And I'm sitting here like, okay, you know what? You're not on the inside. You're on the outside looking in, expressing your own whatever.
But this is my point, Leonard, is that everybody has a right to express how they feel.
Well, they do.
How they feel they were treated, how they feel that it, he Harley says I was concerned stepchild accepted by the gays, straights to the party. That's great. A lot of people were, and a lot of people weren't. And Robert Williams will tell you they didn't let everybody in. So Harley, you got accepted, you got in there. That didn't happen for everybody. So there was a lot of shade in the community. And we can't deny it.
As a Robert, now I want to ask Craig about this. This is Craig, this is a question for you.
Okay, Mega has a question too, but go at right after that. And then Mega, yes.
Okay, Craig.
Yes.
Do you remember this DJ? His name was Larry Williams.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you do know Larry was supposed to have been the DJ at 16th Street at the Music Box. But they had creative differences. Larry Williams and Robert Williams. Right. Larry really wanted it to be just a strictly gay-oriented club, right?
Right.
But Robert had a vision, and that's just when I forgot where I put there's my shoebox. I got to pull this back out. You didn't see this one. This is what was let me get there.
Yeah,
that's the original, right?
The original, right.
Yeah, that's the original, right? Now, Robert had a whole different view of it. Robert Williams was trying to bring everyone together. Robert Williams, there's some people that say, I hate Robert Williams, whatever. Robert Williams was trying to break all barriers as the classism, the house music elitists, the gay, the anti-gay, Robert Williams was trying to break all of that and say, hey, he basically wanted what they had at Studio 54, a party that would never end, and ditch diggers could dance with celebrities.
Right. Yeah,
and everybody was on that same right here. And that's what made the Music Box on 16th Street so great.
Yeah, but Robert Williams
I love that club.
He had a different story at the warehouse, though. He didn't let everybody in there. Now, okay, so
but he learned from that.
The attitude of the people trying to get in. All right.
See,
Michael, you've been trying to say something.
Yeah, well, I mean that point is an interesting one, and the conversation and comments in particular have continued to pour in around this notion that while we are telling the house story here, of course we're on Vintage House, this phenomenon that we're describing is not unique to house music. It is a component of the story. There's no denying it. But we, again, are bringing who we are, what we're encountering in the larger society into our experiences of house music. And what I saw and noted as another interesting comment, even today, there are still some people trying to find their place in house music in the history, in the annals of house music history. There is that same pursuit that we're discussing now about cultural fit. And so it's entertaining and indeed, but Lori, your point about we have to have this discussion to be comprehensive in our scholarly presentation of house music is
Mhm.
is a point that we absolutely have to live in this moment. And I'm glad Craig and Leonard and Lauren and Lori, as well as all of our viewers, are part of this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think that I am a peace loving, flower child. Trust me. So I don't ever want to talk about cliques and bad things and what have you. And like Lauren, the reason that I'm bringing it up, and I think the reason that I've been entertaining these conversations with people who have dissenting opinions and can be controversial, is that it comes from somewhere, and maybe maybe we can unpack a little bit of it. And I think we've done a decent job of doing that. um, our last guest, Reggie Corner, did a really nice job of doing that when he was brave enough to say, "Look, I came from the projects. We saw this thing that was happening that was very outside of our experience, and we wanted to be connected to that thing." That's the power of the house music culture, and then later on the house music canon. It was a powerful binding force in the Black community, and we have to at some point be brave enough to talk about class and culture and where that helped and where that hurt. And does that continue to help and hurt us? Because we bitch and moan about why Chicago isn't getting this shine. Maybe this has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there.
An important point of what you just said. Sorry, Leonard. Just really quick.
No, go ahead.
Binding force intonates unification, and unfortunately, we've also spent a lot of time on this show and in the community of house talking about division. I too believe that it has been a binding force, but when you talk about that, you also talked about the outcome, right? The outcome is that we're still finding ourselves defending the ownership of this very thing.
Right. We're trying to figure out why. And it can't just be that we're all crazy and that Europe got it right and New York got it right and Chicago somehow gets it wrong, because that's the argument that I hear from everybody, is that it's this cliquish and people trying to bring this crabs in the barrel, this, that. No, we got to diagnose it. We have to diagnose it, people. There's some other thing that's going on there. I'm not suggesting that I've got all the answers. I think we all have the answers, but I think we're getting closer to it. And these kind of conversations will help us unpack that and potentially heal some of those fissures that have created, this rocky landscape that we have in the city that doesn't allow people to elevate in the way that we should have. We should have elevated. I agree with all of you out there. We should be getting more shine.
That's interesting that you said that, because that brought it back to the classism thing. Some of the times what tends to happen is people and this is not just in the house music scene, who see someone who everyone likes and everything, they tend to judge and make their own opinion of that person before they even get to know them. They may just hear stories here, stories there, and they may come up with a false narrative of what that person really is or like. And I think that that's one of the problems that we have, especially in the DJ community. Which causes that separatism, where we're just, the unification is not there at all, because some people are just having their own opinions of we would say the hierarchy or whatever, and they don't even really know them. They don't even know them.
Why does that happen?
A lot of people did that with Frankie.
Why does that happen? That I don't know.
I don't know why. I don't know why it happens, but like I say, it happens in our community, period, not just in the house music scene, and just, I guess, in business, period.
Right. Player haters.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And then that creates a division. That creates a division. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, honey.
No, I was just thinking, I had a conversation about somebody the other day, and this is about my good friend Alan King. This guy was saying, I don't know where Alan King came from, kind of like hating. And I'm like, what the hell you mean? I said, Alan's been around since day one. Where you're new. Okay, I had to tell him. I had to really tell him. I said, "You're new." Well, I don't know. He just came out of nowhere. I said, "No, he didn't. He earned his stripes. He was around when
Yeah,
You're new." But see, this is what I'm talking about. You make judgment on somebody and want to hate on somebody when you don't even
yeah,
know them or even know their history. You know, just
Well,
because you just found out about him, now you wondering where did he come from and why does he have such a large following? And it's because he's been around since day one. You're
and
new.
he's worked
Greg,
very hard, and he's immensely talented, and that's why.
Exactly.
Greg,
Exactly. Yeah.
they know nothing about paging Dr. Derelict. Paging Dr. Derelict. Hello.
They don't. No, they don't. They don't. You know, and but see, the thing is that a lot of the problem that I see
Yeah,
happening is a lot of the younger
Comments
people
killing
in
me.
house music don't. You know, you have. I look at it like this: you have to know your history before you know. You got to know where you came from before you know where you're going. That
that's
doesn't mean
right.
you have to relish in the past and all that, but you have to know where you came
I like this comment, Ken. That's wild AF. It is. That's the best comment tonight.
Be right
And
Absolutely.
back.
and Craig,
So,
you make a great point that we actually addressed it at the onset of the show, was sort of the rationale around why there are books and documentaries and the show and others like it, really working to ensure that the history is well documented and articulated. And so you're exactly right. You know, people have to really understand the history in order to know where they're going and to have a conversation that is rational, right, with someone like
from.
yourself or anyone else on
Yeah.
this panel.
A
yeah,
rational
there's,
discussion, right?
Okay.
it
Well,
does have to be
question.
rational. Yeah, one more point. I'll say this, and then I'll let you ask that question. Is that I think that I think we're on to something, everybody who's watching, and everybody here. I think we're on to something. We're going to create something very special because and I hear what a lot of the comments are. Players are going to just hate. Some people just going to be contrary. It's just the way of the world, right? You're always going to have that. But we also know that there is something that has been challenging about telling our story. Something challenging about telling our story, that every time it's told, that there is a backlash, that and maybe that's any story. Maybe that was the revolution, civil war. There's always going to be backlash. I just think that if we are going to be the city of love and we proclaim that house music is all that we have to be better. We have to be better storytellers, and we have to have a better story. And it's not just one or two haters out there. There's a lot of folks who think that we're not doing so hot.
This is an important point because when early 90s, I recognized as the emergence of the house production community really took root, right? One of the things we weren't doing as a music industry or a set of music industry professionals was creating that narrative and pitching it out to the various media outlets, which had broad audiences. And so I stepped into that gap as what I claim to be the first house music publicist, creating the narratives, the biographies, the press releases, because of course there was no social media back then, and then going to Billboard, the Larry Flicks, the Dance Music Report, Mix Mag, all of these outlets, and saying, hey, Chicago is here, and here are the people making the music. They have great stories and great music, and so you need to take note and begin to cover the movement that was happening here. So that's something I'm very prideful about having done and recognized, but absolutely that challenge has not been fully overcome in this story of house music.
Well, I want to thank you, Kevin, and I want to say I really appreciate the comments that are coming in, and they're all so important. All right, what's this? Funny,
Yeah, and
you on your show. I
I'm,
am legend.
I'm,
Hush you. How you gonna do this?
Because that particular Lori, look, that's something personal
All
with
right.
that particular New Jersey person.
All right. Well,
Anyway, look, Lori, let me get my 30 seconds. All right.
Go ahead.
Now, Lori.
Yes.
Craig.
He's there.
Yeah.
Present.
Okay. Because I know y'all know this is the first house music record. This is the bridge between disco and house. I'm finna play this.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
What this is.
I'm gonna play a little bit of this.
I'm gonna mute you while you lay it up, and then we'll put it on. Okay. So listen, we are running out of time. I'm gonna let you play it. All right. Out of my hands, people.
My goodness.
It's out of my hands. It's out of my hands.
Love taking over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all know this. Chicago. Y'all know this.
You're screaming,
Chicago.
I miss the studio so much. I really do.
Yeah.
Chicago.
That song reminds me of John Jordan. You guys remember John Jordan?
It does.
Remember JJ?
Oh,
you
better know how to mix to play that.
The problem of the bigger picture that you were talking about. It just so happens that right before the pandemic happened, I was privy to be a part of a thing that Marshall Jefferson and Derek Jones were putting together, which was going to be unbelievable. They were literally contacting all of the original founders of Chicago house music, and it was going to be done in series, down from the originals, then the next phase, then the next phase. It was going to be a long series, but we were getting together to actually put a timeline coming out of Chicago, an original timeline of everything. It was going to be a very heated roundtable conversation, but we had to cancel it. It was going to be May 15th of this year, and we had to cancel it because of the pandemic. But it was going to be pinnacle to what we're trying to do here. Because, see, the problem is the timeline. And we all need to get together and come up with this declaration and this timeline of what everything is. And that's it. This is coming from Chicago. And that's what we need to do. And it's going to happen.
So we'll look forward to that.
We have
go ahead, Leonard.
And what Craig is talking about, I was going to be a part of that.
Yes. And you will be when they do it.
I drove to Savannah. No, this is what happened. And I'm going to tell it. I'm going to tell it.
You got to tell it in like the next 30 seconds because we got to close the show.
Okay. I'm going to tell it in 30 seconds. Marshall Jefferson was in Savannah, Georgia. He had to go there for a funeral. I was in the car with my girl, and we driving, and we was following, and that's when I crashed my Mercedes. Remember I tore up my Mercedes?
I saw the pictures.
Because I made the wrong turn off 95. Yeah. So I was going to be in Chicago at the Chicago Cultural Center for that documentary that was supposed to be like an eight-part documentary that was going to be shot for Netflix. Craig, I'm not gonna put out there how the check that each one of us were gonna get for being a speaker. I'm not gonna put the money out we were gonna get paid for this. But
let's not do that.
We're not gonna do that. I'm not gonna put that out there.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think we should try to keep it under wraps so y'all don't jinx it. Let's make it. We're gonna get it going, right, Craig?
Yes, we are. It's definitely gonna happen. It's going
to happen in 2021. We're going to do it again. We're going to try again. The coronavirus threw that whole thing off.
You know, coronavirus is teaching us a lot of lessons, people. They say when you need a lesson, the teacher will show up, and coronavirus is this year's teacher. So I hope everybody is paying attention. Okay. So listen, we have a good question. Kevin said who's going to be at that around that round table. I'm not sure who's going to be at the round table. Lee, I'm not sure what facts you're talking about, but I agree.
It was more, let me just explain to you guys.
Yes,
It
one
was
more thing. Go ahead.
Real quick, it was a history of the music. It wasn't about the clubs, even though we did have a couple of the club owners there. It was more about the timeline of the music. We needed to lock down the timeline of the music. And
now,
as
when
we
you
do
say the
that,
music, are you talking about, what are you talking about when you say the music? Are you talking about the canon, the culture, like, you know, my boy Smooth talks about? What do you mean?
when I say the music, I mean the actual physical, the audible sound. The first house sounding, we're not even going to go with the first pressing because that was a big issue before. When we first went from Euro disco and classic disco, and then all of the people got in their basements and started jumping up with drum machines and keyboards and came out, bringing out reel to reels, that music. That's what we're talking.
All right. Hey, I do have a homework assignment for everybody. If you haven't done so, Mega, aka Kevin McFall, did an amazing interview with Chip E, and where he talks about, it's on our podcast. If you haven't had an opportunity to do it, please subscribe to the Vintage House podcast wherever your podcasts are available, and you can hear this really insightful interview with Chip E and Kevin when they talk about the origins of the house music. So so much of it.
That was a dope
It's
show.
a great show. It's a podcast. You can just download it, listen to it in your car, and he sort of breaks down that it's all music, you know, in our community. Much of that early music, like other music, is influenced and informed by other things. So, Craig, I brought that up because I think your timeline and the house music sound is going to be a very interesting exploration. So you will keep us posted on when and if that is going to occur. Maybe there will be a virtual version of it. Is that possible?
No, it'll be too heated. We need to physically get together. Yeah, do it virtually. Yeah, we physically need to be together because this has to. You know, it would be lovely to try to do it virtually, but it wouldn't work. You couldn't facilitate it correctly virtually. Yeah.
Right. Okay,
but
last question.
A quick point, real quick. I just want to say something.
I know
Out of
you do.
everyone I've seen, Chip E was the closest. Chip E came up with a timeline that was almost the most accurate one that I've ever seen. I just want to let you know that.
All right. Well, we're gonna listen. It's always going to be a story that keeps getting new additions. Even if we created the best version possible, somebody inevitably will not be there. So let's keep an open mind as these projects continue to develop. But I do want to ask one question as we close out the show. First of all, Leonard, I don't know where you went, but thank you for being here and being
nice. I didn't leave. I had to get something.
Thank you, Leonard.
What's that, honey? Can't
That's
tell.
the Chip E documentary on DVD.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I think it's time for a rescreening of that, Chip E. He's not watching tonight. Dance Cult Journal did an amazing scholarly look at Craig's. Did you know this?
Oh,
Craig?
yeah.
What is that?
That's
Darlene,
the Chip E documentary on. There it is.
Okay,
what
Dance.
Was the name
this is something different. It's
the unusual suspects.
We're talking about
I remember that. That was great. Yeah, I'm in there. I remember that.
Yeah, I'm in there too. Craig, we were there the same night talking.
You know how
Craig.
What year was that? Yeah, go ahead.
See, I'm the host, so I can mute people. How about that? Okay. Now, everybody good? All right.
Yeah.
So what I was saying was Dance Cult Journal did an amazing scholarly look at your song, Craig, Mary Don't You Weep, your version.
Mm-hmm.
So did you know this?
Yes, I did.
Okay, well, very good. There it is. All right, so I'm going to close out by saying thank you all for watching. This is a great show. We're going to have, I know that Mega has a guest next week. Who's your guest?
We've got an East Coast guest, someone from Chicago that's been living both on the East Coast and in the UK.
Okay.
To us, and a local still local Chicago female DJ.
Oh, is it like a mystery guest?
Surprise.
Little tease.
Okay, we'll see.
Tune in, like the Greenwich House page to make sure you find out.
I love you for that. We're going to have, I'm not going to be a mystery about mine because Kevin Abdullah, who's been on our show before and really was a fixture in the early house music scene as one of those cute boys that we all love so much, but also, you know, played a role in the power plant or the powerhouse power plant, and in many clubs and promotions. And he's going to be in with Hans Cherry. So that's coming up. I'm also going to have my girl Aisha Mays, who's going to talk about the Coteries. Coteries was a club. Oh, do you guys remember the Coteries?
Yeah.
So some of the girl groups, or the girl promotion groups who did parties, you know, at the hotels and all over the place. So that's coming up too.
I look forward to that.
And Davi is going to join her. Davi Davenport, who's got her own thing going on. She was one of those, another fixture in the house music community. So we got a lot coming up, but this is the last question I asked. So Wayne brought up an interesting point. He said that Onyx song was not the first house music song. So when you think of house music, what do you think is the first song that to you says Chicago house, the first song? And I'm not talking about the first thing pressed or the first tape or whatever. It doesn't even have to be Chicago. What is the first house music song that comes to mind? Craig, you go first.
A track I did called Yes,
Oh,
It's Right. There's a track I did called Yes, It's Right. That was actually, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us.
Well, no, it's just when we were back in the power plant days, it was before Chippy and all of them brought their tracks down. I never really pushed it or cared about, you know, but that was my first chance of trying to create what I heard disco. And me and my friend Daryl Duncan, we tried to create a sound of what we thought would be our version of electronic dance music. And to me, that was the first track that I considered, that I heard, that I liked, that was house. Everything else that I had heard before that was disco and Euro disco. And then after that, then I started seeing Chip and Jamie Principal, Chippy and Steve Hurley. They would bring their tracks down to the power plant for us to play. And that's when it all started kicking off for me, for other people, because I really didn't dive into being an artist at that point. Go ahead.
Now, tell me again the name of the song.
It's called Yes, It's Right.
Yes, It's Right. Craig Loftus' first house music song. So we're keeping track of this for a reason. Lauren, what was the first song that you considered house music that you remember hearing?
You know, I would.
Doesn't have to be Chicago.
I wouldn't be able to remember, but 1981 was my freshman year of high school, and I was just listening to anything and everything. I mean, all I remember is Steve Hurley was playing at the sock hop, and whatever it is he was playing, I was partying to it right at the front. I was right at the front. I was like, wherever he is, that's where I'm gonna be, right there.
Of course.
But I don't remember any of the songs, just all of the songs. I really can't remember one. I couldn't say one.
Okay, you're gonna have to come up with one better answer next time. Okay, Mega.
Yep, mine is as much about what I recall as the experience of when I experienced, it's late. This was as much about the song as it was about the experience. And it was Jesse Saunders, On and On, because he came to campus where I was. We hosted him as the featured DJ for a big event at the University of Illinois. It was Kappa Carnival, I think. So On and On.
On and On. Okay. And Leonard?
It's House by
It's
Chippy,
House.
because that's the first song that said it's actually house. And On and On was a bootleg of a bootleg by Mars.
Listen,
You know what I mean?
Listen.
Listen.
Listen, you listen to Chippy's show. You're gonna find some interesting things there. Okay.
We may have video.
I was on that show.
Yes, that's right. You were.
Now for me, I was there, Magda. You know, was I there?
Yes.
All right, so this
Now,
was
for
about
me,
this was about what house was not, but what it was for you. So your first song was
should
It's
be
House. It's
his
House.
house.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Now,
Now,
how,
outside of that realm was Brother to Brother, Chance with You. But as
Okay,
a
Lori,
house,
what about you? What about you, Lori?
honestly, now I'm going to say something that'll be controversial. But when I think about the first track that I heard that was very different than the disco sound that we were used to, and for me was one of the songs, but it stands out for me as a song that ushered in this new era. It was Moody, ESG. I felt like house music to me.
yeah,
That felt
that
like
was
house music to me.
underground.
But
That was
actually,
underground
I
punk.
wouldn't consider,
But
yeah, it was
Yeah,
more punk. Moody was more, ESG was
but
more of a,
it,
but
it
I
was
got
it
you
was
though.
punk, but it had very African, underpinnings.
I
It
was
was
just
it
about
was
to
I got
say.
tribal
you.
punk.
But see that,
So
you know
I
what,
think
that's
of
the
house
whole,
music as like tribal punk. You know what I'm
yeah, you
saying?
know, but
Like
see,
with a little disco thrown in. Yeah,
I
go
got
ahead.
you. But see,
what?
that would start that whole conversation with, see, here's one of the biggest problems that
Yeah,
house music lovers have. We take stuff and we adopt it,
I
because
agree.
we could sit up here and have a fight to the death. I can
Right.
tell you that Teddy Pendergrass did not intend for Bad Luck to be a house song. And if you ask some people and they tell you that it's not
Right.
classic house, they want to kill
Listen,
you.
It was
listen.
But it wasn't.
appropriated
It's
by house.
R&B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through the
House
remix. Absolutely.
house music is an umbrella for a lot of different genres. So let's
Yeah.
keep it real. So there was house music culture. Let me get in the frame here. House music
The
culture,
culture,
house
right?
music canon, talking about, it's house and this, that, and the other. And then there was
Right.
house music umbrella, which was all of these things. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it has evolved over time. It's not just one thing, and it's not just a specific sound, on an 808 that comes out of somebody's basement. It is a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and that's okay. It is all good.
Okay, end right there. I love
And
it.
with that,
And
And
with
that
that,
right there.
this
Right.
is the Vintage House Show, normally
Now,
broadcast on
Lori.
oh my
WNUR
God.
89.3, but
Hold,
we're
hold on.
taking in the at-home edition.
Leonard, you
Hold,
missed the
hold,
perfect
hold
ending.
on. Please, I beg of you.
We have to have
I
you back.
beg of you.
Wilcox,
30
we're gonna bring
seconds.
him on. Yes. 10
30 seconds.
seconds. We
I
gotta
beg
go.
of you. Since MAGA's talking about Afrocentric, I beg of you, 30 seconds.
That was me talking about Afrocentric. Go ahead.
Go.
Okay, 30 seconds. Here you go. Okay.
All right, we're gonna go out on your
seconds.
we're gonna go
30
out on your
seconds.
track, Leonard. Okay.
30 seconds.
VintageHouseShow.com.
Okay.
Please visit us and download every episode that you've missed. Yeah, mantra.
All right, keep it going because we're gonna go out on that. Just let it ride. Let it ride. Let it ride.
We talk about this.
I love you all. Everybody who's watching, you are my gift. Gift to me. Thank you so much. You should have let it. Just keep it low. Keep it going. Put it back on, Leonard. We like that song.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
There we go. Tantrum. That's right. That's right.
You know what,
All
Lori?
right, you
This song
guys.
reminds me of you.
What you say?
It reminds me of you.
Oh, I used to rock this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I love you guys. Have a great week. We will see you next Wednesday. Leonard, thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning
You're on
in.
your best behavior, and I appreciate you for it. Craig Loftus,
Thank you,
you're
Leonard.
not on your
Craig.
best behavior, but that's okay. I
All
love
right.
you. Leonard.
Good to see you, Craig. Good to hear you. Leonard.
All right, guys. Peace.
Bye.
9 o'clock next Wednesday.
9 o'clock. Bye.